Happy Monday, everybody, and thanks for checking into today's TDR Traded Black podcast. We just got an announcement from Florida. What is it? So let's just jump right into it. Welcome in, TDR co-host Anthony Varell. You were about to make that announcement, and then we had to start the podcast. What are you seeing and hearing?
It's 48 pages. I'm reading through it right now.
All right. So as you read through it, big news, obviously, the elephant in the room. Everybody's waiting to see, obviously, what the Supreme Court's their comments are pertaining to adult use being added onto the ballot for the upcoming election.
It's approved. It's approved.
It is approved.
It's approved.
Bam. Bam. There you go. That's unbelievable news. Finally, something in the right direction for this space.
Page 17 at the bottom. These reasons we conclude the ballot summary and amendment comply with the requirements imposed by Article 11, Section 3 of the Florida Constitution. We therefore approve the proposed amendment for placement on the ballot. I lost my golf bet to Anthony Caniglio, but I will gladly take this. Doesn't matter, Anthony. I look forward to playing. You look forward to playing golf very soon. It's on me.
That's amazing.
That is
Look
good.
at the responses. Here we go. Happy Burns, Guap, Eric Rogers, Guap. Good to see you. Hope you had a good long weekend with Easter. Let's bring actually MSO Mondays. Let's bring Dan Ahrens in right now. I'm not going to wait, but let's get his response as well and just have an open conversation. Any questions that anyone want to ask, let's bring him in. Dan, this is amazing news, is it not?
That's good news. It was expected,
yeah.
But now we breathe a sigh of relief and potentially gently celebrate.
This is a big win for the space. We've been waiting and waiting. This space is all about waiting. And then let's face it, late last week, Governor Youngkin's in Virginia, it's like, this is just the same old from what we hear. Get our hopes up only to be crushed, it seemed like, in the cannabis space. But I think that puts news from last week way in the rear view mirror and onwards and upwards, because as we've been saying in the discussion for quite some time, Anthony Cogniglio, because I think we both win. But this paves the way for one of the biggest cannabis markets in the world now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Virginia was disappointing, but I think everybody that would be listening here knows that Florida is many multiples bigger of a market.
Yes.
The other thing is, a couple things. Well, it's going to be on the ballot. It still has to get at least 60% supermajority to pass on the ballot.
Yeah.
Those wonderful people at SAM and others are still going to be raising their ugly heads trying to squash it. So there's still going to be ups and downs. I'm confident. Polling numbers right now, I think, show 67% in favor.
You think that number increases heading into the fall?
Should. Polling numbers are wonky. I mean, come on. But I think there is widespread positive support here. So I think it's passing. I think everybody thinks it's passing.
I'm in Dan's school of thought there. I just think that the traditional industry needs to be careful because, like we said about 2 weeks ago, the Delta 8 THCA that they're going after in the state, there is a certain amount of the grassroots people in Florida that are levered to that industry. I mean, I think if we play our cards right, Kim's going to come out. The coalition of the Florida MSOs are going to come out. I mean, the work starts now, though. This is going to be a battle going into November. But Dan's right. I mean, we're polling about 7 points above the 60% threshold that we need. It should pass. And I mean, this feels really good to get a win for once.
Absolutely.
Especially after Virginia last week.
And remember that the other thing is we think and hope everything's going to go nice and smoothly once it does pass the vote.
Yeah.
But, New York State says, hold my beer. So, and hell, even didn't Virginia get approved?
Yeah.
And then, the governor chooses to get in there and mess with actual retail sales, even though it did get approved. So, no, I think when you see the hugely successful medical program in Florida, I don't think we're going to see any of those screw ups from unsuccessful states.
Oh.
I think Florida should be a model program that will look at other states that have taken, other licensees and just turned on adult use sales.
Absolutely.
That's scenario.
We have learned too much, have we not? Even in a year, 2 years, we have learned so much, have we not? Pertaining to this space.
We have.
But you're talking to me and Anthony right now. You're not talking to state bureaucrats.
Correct. It's going to get challenged. I mean, keep in mind when this program rolled out, we didn't even have smokable flower.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked like Georgia. But that being said, under DeSantis, this market has flourished.
Yeah.
This market has matured. But there's still nuance to Florida. Like, you can't even have infused pre-rolls in this market. Like, there's still things lacking. There's no wholesale in this market. There's things still lacking in this market. But I mean, this is a huge win and a huge step forward for everybody involved. But like Dan and I keep reiterating, I mean, we've got a ways to go.
Yes.
This is going to be a battle. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be speed bumps. But I mean, this is huge that they accepted it.
Massive news. E-Money logs on, writes, did we get it? Yes, E-Money, we got it. Yeah. Good news in the state of Florida. Skip Swellman, who's got the greatest name. That guy should be in media. Showbiz. I like that name. Skip Swellman. Yeah. I like the Sunshine State. Yes. Guap, good to see you, my friend. Mungie Boy writes, I bet Anthony had that face when he was young on Christmas mornings.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But anyway, what a job, obviously. And I was actually speaking to her on Twitter X over the weekend, Kim Rivers. She's actually going to be coming on a week from today. But I said, put your feet up over the weekend and give yourself a pat on the back. A lot of effort that she put towards this. And I think, Dan, kudos goes to Kim Rivers for really leading a lot of this charge. And she stems to benefit more than anyone. But at the end of the day, she's built this model. She's built 133 dispensaries. And I got nothing but praise for her now that she's got, what looks to be the opportunity of a lifetime right now for this industry, more specifically True Leaf.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing when sometimes you see, I wish everybody in this space was just one big happy family, but sometimes you see competition.
Yeah.
But no, with what she and True Leaf have done in Florida in this past year or so, it is roundly known that she led the charge and respected by all. So, there's companies in Florida that have, people are using the word torque. And it's some of those companies that have been a little bit more leveraged, maybe had, hurt a little bit more in the 2.5 year drawdown. True Leaf was always seen as, one of your highest quality producers out there. So no, a huge gain for True Leaf, but Air, even Planet 13, Consortium that it's too small. We don't invest in it at this time. But
Verano,
Verano's a good one. Green Thumb has some good dispensaries there. A lot to be gained from a whole number of companies.
And who's on the up and up? Who's on the up and up in Florida is Cresco. Sunnyside's trending in the right direction in terms of flower sales, in terms of milligrams THC. They've got the products dialed in. I've obviously got my money where my mouth is in Air. I've been in it for a while, but Cresco's got a formidable footprint. But I'm excited to see what Air does. They've got 64 dispensaries with a couple more on the way. They just need to get an indoor grow and get indoor flower going ahead of adult use, and they should be good to go.
So we asked this question this morning on our Twitter account. Is this a sell in the news type event, or do you think we could see, and I like what you're saying or looking over there, Anthony, shaking your head. I don't think it is. I think it's going to be a fun week for a lot of these Florida players, right?
Yeah, I don't pay much attention to after hours trading because people shouldn't do it. But and most of these OTCs, you can't really see after hours on that. But MSOs is up after hours about 25 cents right now.
I thought you were going to say 20%.
I was going to think, what?
I was like, all right, we're going to 12 quickly.
Yeah.
No. Because once again, the after hours market, it's not that reliable. But no, there's definitely some upward pressure. In the
Look at the comments coming in though. George Rive, I need a TDR hat and MSO t-shirt. Yes, Yes, you do. Send us.
It's rare that we get to celebrate these W's. Like we've
I know.
been
This is great.
slapped around for a while now.
George, email us at info@thedalesreport.com. We'll get your address. But yeah, everybody wants to subscribe to our channel. Hats and t-shirts going out, but you need to subscribe to the Baked In newsletter. And as well, let's take this viral, baby. We got some great news today, and the more likes, more comments that we leave, the greater the chance this goes viral. So please leave all comments below and what you think is next and how happy and excited you are about the news here today. So this is great news. I guess the next question, Dan, is, and it begs the question, and I'm not sure how much you can comment on this, but when you look at the way this ETF of yours is structured with this news, do you kind of sit back, maybe reevaluate? I'm not putting you on the spot, knowing the announcement's only made 10 minutes ago, but when you wake up tomorrow and then in the coming weeks, how do you prepare, I guess, and put the best foot forward based off of this news?
Well, I've talked about this before, that in MSOs in particular, with all the swap exposure that we're forced to have still, I'm not going to manage it too tactically.
Yeah.
As money comes into the fund, a lot of that money goes to work automatically in the current weightings. That's, market makers reaching out to our swap counterparties. I've talked about that before. But when I have extra cash, I tactically, if you want to call it that, choose where I want to put it to work. Sometimes I put it to work in beat up stocks. If I see something that looks like it's unfairly down 10%, I might come in and buy some of that, and kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. If I own millions of dollars of stock and I can raise its price by buying it when it's beat up. To answer your question, yeah, I'm pretty impressed with what's going to happen in Florida. I think things are going to happen in Florida. I think these things are thinly traded and not huge volume. So there might be a lag in pricing efficiently. So yeah, I'm going to probably, can't tell you what I'm going to do, lean on Florida exposed companies a little bit more. Everybody should know that Trulieve is currently the second largest holding in the fund. And like the first and second and third and fourth, extremely overweighted for an average fund. We own a ton of Trulieve, very happily so.
Yeah, makes sense. I don't know what else to say other than the fact that this is all exciting. And we had a whole show scripted out here today, but we basically grabbed that script and threw it in the garbage because of this news. I didn't think it would come out till about 4:10 or 4:15, but it came out right off the top. But again, for those that are watching, or basically the Supreme Court made their comment, it is approved that adult use cannabis will be on the ballot. And again, Anthony, just so people understand as far as next steps, there is going to be some stuff that will be contested, but all in all, you think with the approval rate around 67%, all signs point to adult use being legalized and approved based on the upcoming election and the approval rate that Floridians want this to happen, correct?
Yeah, I mean, people have to get out to the polls. Like this has to be voted on. This has to get above 60%. Like 67% is a good barometer. We're polling higher than what we need right now to break the threshold. But I mean, this still needs to get done. I mean, so even though this has been approved, it's going to be on the ballot come November. It's then going to get voted on. Let's say we get 62%. It then goes into I'm pretty sure there's a comment period. There's a chance to legally challenge it. Then they need to draft and implement. We're looking at a best case scenario, May 2025. There would be adult use cannabis live in the market in Florida.
Yeah.
If everything goes to plan.
Yeah, which I think plenty of people have been known and accustomed to waiting in this space. But if they have something that's guaranteed and affirmative, that's all this industry wants. And if it takes another 6 to 8 months before it actually comes live, that's okay. Because if rescheduling or safe banking or any kind of announcement is made later on and it's guaranteed, that's pretty much all we want and something that we've been battling for. One of the people actually wrote, I think it was the cannabis, asking if it was undervalued with exposure into Florida. We forgot to mention them as well, but that'll be an interesting company and stock to see how that'll perform, because yes, it's been a lot of things hit at them all at once, but then you look at a company like that, is it undervalued right now? And based on this news, this can only be helpful for that company too, don't you think, Dan?
Yeah, quite possibly. It's if you're talking about torque and upside potential, it's one of those stocks that has been beat up
Yeah.
People could argue fairly beat up. But if you just look at bottom line numbers, probably undervalued, especially when you factor in Florida.
Yeah.
But going back to some timelines, Anthony was just talking about. Yeah, this is great news, and we should all breathe a sigh of relief. I don't think we should be having too many victory laps here.
Yeah.
Because I'm still waiting on the DEA for rescheduling. We supposedly have headway on safe banking that absolutely no one wants to hear about. People just get pissed when they hear the word safe or safer.
I know.
So all those things are still there, and this is going to take a pretty darn long time. Even if we are thinking it's 90-something% good to go, we're still talking about next year. So a hell of a lot of up and downs between then. Don't be counting your money and taking your victory laps on Florida yet. Although, great news.
Very good news.
We'll be nice to be able to actually model the companies with Florida adult use now. Semi-baked.
Vincent Russell.
That'd be nice to see.
Vincent Russell writes, Green Thumb, get those gas stations going.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
That was always going to be a tiny little experiment, people. But
we'll continue to touch on Florida. Again, this is the TDR Trade to Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales, along with co-host Anthony Varell and the Chief Operating Officer of Advisorshares ETF MSOS. Dan Ahrens joins us here for MSOS Monday, I should say. Big news, obviously, out of Florida, where the Supreme Court commented they have approved adult use to be included on the upcoming election ballot this upcoming fall.
It's also very important to note that abortion will be on the ballot as well. That bodes well for cannabis, as most of that demographic votes in line with those two topics.
It's just another example. It seems like Florida is just a state where it's life before COVID. It's just, they like to keep a lot of things simple. Maybe it's a stretch. Maybe it's because the reason why I want to move there, but the world's become a different place ever since COVID, but you can understand the attraction and its opportunities like this, a small little reason when looking at the grand scheme of things as to why a lot of people are liking the state of Florida right now. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do want to bring up headline 2. Let's jump actually into some Florida cannabis retail sales. Dan, if you still got some time, I'd love if you could stick around, but I did want to highlight basically some of the numbers that outlined that came out recently. Latest numbers for February 2024. Anthony, you maybe want to touch on, we'll bring up the chart, Mitch, the top 5 states in the latest chart and how much the sales, I guess, increased year over year. But yeah, there's the numbers itself. But take a looking at some of those numbers. Look at Michigan again, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see. Obviously, California declined sequentially year over year. Michigan, though, is a freight train. I mean, Michigan, we saw stabilize, or not stabilize, but start to trend back up in Q3 and Q4 2023. And I mean, to see that jump sequentially to 261 million for the month of February, I mean, that's impressive. Florida grew. It's nice to see Illinois growing, albeit it was about a little over 12%. In growth. Mass is good. Missouri, and then I mean Colorado. Colorado and Arizona, they're not too much a big piece of the conversation around the investment theses of a lot of these companies, even though I've heard Arizona is actually trending up for certain operators that are there now. But it's just it's great to see these markets. And then obviously you've got Maryland and New Jersey that are trending up in a big way sequentially. And I don't think it definitely shouldn't be left unsaid that Maryland is a direct beneficiary now of Glenn Youngkin's ass backwards policy in Virginia.
That's actually a great point.
Maryland is now going to still benefit from those cross-border sales coming from Virginia. So, I mean, that's great.
Really good
TerrAscend's obviously I got a big outfit there. There's a lot of other MSOs that have exposure in Maryland. And I think also talking about Youngkin, I don't think he fundamentally understands what's going on in his state because cannabis is very much accessible already. Cannabis it's pretty loose as far as everything goes in Virginia, with the exception of actually being adult use. And that video that he put out, I think on Thursday of last week, was essentially as if he was reading talking points off of a SAM whiteboard. basically just cannabis is bad, cannabis destroys communities. It just seemed very ill-informed, and just as he had an axe to grind because he didn't get his stadium deal. That's all speculation, but that's exactly what it seemed. It was like, this is collateral damage for me not getting my stadium. You guys now don't get adult use cannabis.
Do you think that's the case? Do you agree with that, Dan?
Close.
Well, as Anthony said, it's speculation, but yeah. I don't know. Is he being an old school drugs are bad, reefer madness kind of guy in his statements? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Does it smell like he has some kind of weird axe to grind? Yeah. But hey, going back to the numbers you were showing, Shad, I think it's really interesting that people should note the operator friendly states and the big MSOs states. Everybody knows about. Look at the old markets like Oregon showing up pretty low down there. Look at even where Colorado is. Does your average listener know that Missouri is right there with Colorado?
Think about that.
That's crazy.
No, that's very crazy. And since we've been talking about Florida, looking at those numbers there, remind yourself that those are all medical only numbers.
That's wild, isn't it?
And that's why right there in black and white, we believe Florida can be the #1 cannabis state in America very soon.
Look at Maryland, 38 million February of 2023. Adult use went live July 1. So you can obviously see the benefits of that.
Double. Yeah, just double.
More than doubling. But let's have this conversation 2 years from today. And remember that number, Florida, which 215 medical only. You add in adult use and maybe possibly over doubling that, probably even more.
Yeah, I agree.
You can understand.
Brady said it best last week. People come to Florida on vacation. We have 100 million plus tourists a year. They come here to party. They don't come here to just go on relaxing vacations. I mean, a lot of them come here to unwind, party. Florida adult use cannabis will be a huge beneficiary of that.
I know.
If and when it gets rolled out in 2025.
Think of even like New York City, finance city, like how many people have moved to Florida? Like, yes, you have lots of tourists, but look at the economic engine. This isn't just a sunshine state anymore.
No.
You got major historic hedge fund companies now moving their head offices everywhere into Florida. And there's so many entrepreneurs all across the country that want to move there. So again, to your point, yes, they're estimated to be over $100 billion of tourist revenue generated this year alone, which is a massive number. And then there's 2 million people that live in the state right now?
In Florida?
Yeah.
I think it's 23 million.
23 million.
Was the last sentence, yeah.
Census. To your original point, Dan, you're right. Like, just look at the benefits of what Maryland went through, and you look at year-over-year numbers of adult use, and now a very healthy $215 million, ranking third, and it's medical only. That gives you an idea as to why this baby's a behemoth, right?
Yeah, and again, that whole list there, Arizona is a MSO friendly state that turned on adult use sales in existing beneficiary, and the sales have dropped a little bit, kind of surprisingly, but they turned on a few years ago. But some other states here not as friendly to limited licenses. Yeah, that's the difference.
We did see growth in Illinois, so 142 from 2 years ago to 147 to 160.
PA is going to be one that should grow too, with adult use coming online.
Yeah, that's the state we should all be talking about. That's significant. After our Virginia disappointment, we're not going to have that same problem with Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Again, this is the TDR Trade of Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales, along with Dan Ahrens from Advisorshares along with Anthony Varell, TDR co-host. Again, smash that like button, leave lots of comments. We appreciate all the feedback and support as we build this community out. A few other comments. Chris Brady, I'm going to illegally immigrate to Germany. I'm going to go crawl under a fence or swim a river. Unsure. I don't know what he's referring to there, but
he was referring to they were talking about
there. They don't have open borders.
I think you referred to Florida as a good place to cultivate cannabis. It's actually terrible place. It's a terrible place to cultivate cannabis. With the humidity, I mean, mold, mildew, pests. Florida is a swamp.
Yeah.
Cannabis likes to be grown in wine country in Washington and Oregon, places that are actually very friendly to plants. So no, he was definitely wrong in that assumption.
Yeah. Guap. Okay, guys. I'm sold. I'm moving to Florida. Let's hope. We just got to raise
And you know
some money.
why? You know why Florida is number 3 on that list? Because of
Why?
medical patient penetration rate. That is Guap's favorite term in the industry. Actually,
Gotcha.
fun fact.
Ken Dyer writes, curious which big player will buy out Consortium.
Someone will. They've got funky debt, and they got a lot of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I was the executives of that company, I'm keeping it. That's going to become a cash machine down the road if they can right the ship.
Yeah.
And shore up the balance sheet.
Reminder lesson to everybody is do not try to pick stocks based on potential acquisitions. You will lose every time. They're going to come out of left field and you're not going to know about it.
Yeah, I think you do. I think you could see a consolidation of some of the smaller players in Florida, though, to get that store count up. At the bottom, the bottom 50%.
When you see amalgamation with some of the smaller players, who comes to mind?
I don't want to get speculative.
No. Okay. Fair enough. Emilio Mangul. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. Guys, congratulations. Finally is done. Yes. Again, great news. In case you just joined us, we got all systems go in Florida. A few other comments. Youngkin is clueless. Always has been. Give me rescheduling or give me death, writes Christopher Brady. Christopher, good to see you.
Robert Griffiths is here with his Ianthus, which I will give it to him. Grow Healthy is actually a pretty good dispensary in Florida.
Is it?
They've got decent assets in Florida. There's not that many of them. I think they have 18 stores total, but I have heard the product's good and they are quite popular where they are.
Yeah. Jordan Wyatt writes, based on some of those numbers, Michigan very cannabis friendly too. Yes, it is a freight train. It is done very, very well.
I'd say friendly with a grain of salt. That market's just exploded, but I mean, from an infrastructure perspective, it's almost getting saturated in terms of retail and just the massive amounts of cultivation that came online all at once. But
Guap wanted to bring up a question that we wanted to ask Dan. Mitch, did you bring that up by chance? The question that Guap wanted to ask? Guap, feel free to comment here. Question for Dan. Since OTC all-time trading is 0 to none and many of the NASDAQ names were sold off a while back, example IIPR, please explain to our listeners how MSOs can be up X%.
Yeah, so almost all of MSO's positions do not actually trade after hours because they are OTC and swaps and OTC. A couple of TSX listed names like TerraSend and Curaleaf. But hey, market makers set prices on supply and demand. That's where bid-ask prices on every stock, on every ETF come from, are from market makers that set bid-ask prices. So the market makers, the very few that are active after hours, currently have the bid-ask on MSOs at, I'm seeing 1055 by 1058. The closing price was 1033. So that's what MSOs is trading in the aftermarket right now.
Up almost 6.
Though it owns a whole bunch of swaps. So
hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, market makers, fair value pricing stuff.
I don't think Florida, by the way, I'll answer this question. I don't think Florida, or this one, I don't think Florida has any implications on Georgia. Georgia's a very red state. Georgians were in an uproar when they launched medical. I think Georgia is going to be a very restrictive market for the time being. That being said, Kim's in there building out a footprint again in one of the Southeast markets. So, I mean, I think Georgia is going to be very slow, but Florida, I don't think has any sort of implications on anything loosening up in Georgia anytime soon, which is good because Florida's got about 450 miles of border and on the northern end of the state. That all of those states are none of them are rec, and I think only 2 are medical. So we'll be a beneficiary of cross-border transactions.
If you're Kim Rivers right now, what do you think is going through her mind?
Work. She's got a lot. She got a lot on her plate moving forward. Like we keep saying, like this is step one out of a 12 step process that we're gonna have to go. She's now got to mobilize. She's got to double down on her safe and smart and safe efforts. And I mean, there's a lot of work that's going to need to go in to get this done. Good thing for her though is with the Jeffco facility and with her footprint. I mean, from a capex and a company perspective, she's ready to capitalize today.
Yeah.
And what's going on. Because I mean, as per the last earnings call, she's bringing on the excess capacity that was outside of the Jeffco facility. She's got 130 plus dispensaries in the state, and she's got a portfolio of brands that she's licensed with Alien Labs connected. So this is not an infomercial for Trulieve, but I think they're going to be just fine. It's everything outside of her actual business that is going to be a ton of work moving forward.
Well, put it this way. I think there's a lot of companies prepared and ready to go to work. That's for sure. And for those that have assets there, I'm just thinking as far as some of these mergers and acquisitions, those are some pretty valuable assets to sell off if that's the case, because Florida has just become on the radar for everybody in the space to be in. But
we've had kind of a pause in much, acquisition and merger activity on the U.S. side of the border for very good reason. But no, Florida is going to look real attractive, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see some things. Don't try to predict which things we're going to see, but and the operators that are in Florida, as Anthony was alluding to, like Kim's been doing, they've been ready for this. They've been expecting this. It would have been a huge disappointment if we got the opposite out of the Supreme Court today, but no.
Should make an interesting conference in 2 weeks when we're down there in Florida. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Brian Shaputis writes, will there be a supply problem in Florida when adult commences?
That's what we were just talking about. I don't think so. I think they are going to be ready, and it's going to be a while before it commences too.
Yeah. Jordan Wyatt, correction. Yes, you were referring to Michigan as a growth state to grow. Apologies for that. But yes, we understand what you're saying and definitely agree that Michigan is a great state to grow cannabis. Just a quick reminder. We talk a lot about Florida and a lot of these Supreme Courts basically making a decision today. We're going to keep on the political front. Nancy Mace is joining us on Wednesday on our live stream at 4:00. She's been a big advocate for this space for I don't know how many years. You are pretty much well familiar and aware of this, Dan, but she'll be joining us on the podcast at 4:00 for our live stream. A week from this Wednesday, Anthony and I will actually be at Capitol Hill in Washington, interviewing the biggest names. Again, the people we have on our radar: Matt Gaetz. We'll probably run into Nancy again, Elizabeth Warren, Steve Daines, Dave Joyce. We'll have access to all these people. So we'll probably have a pre-record, maybe even a live stream. We're on the steps of Capitol Hill at the end of the day. Won't be the production value that we usually do, but who cares? We'll show you some of the feedback that we had basically throughout the day. But that's all coming up over the next week and a half. So some great stuff going. And then as usual, a week from today, Kim Rivers, CEO of Trulieve, will be on. I know it's a week later, but it'd be great to get her response and feedback based on today's announcements and most importantly, what people can anticipate next. Gents, I don't know if there's anything else we want to touch on. I know we've got Cali price wars and a couple other topics, but I think we can probably save that till later this week. But I think we pretty much covered everything off. Quick reminder as well, tomorrow at 4:00, we're releasing a podcast with the Chief Marketing Officer of MaryMed, Jay O'Malley, who makes a bold statement. His background is big alcohol, and he makes a bold statement on when he thinks big alcohol will start to come into the cannabis space and acquire some of these companies. That's going to get released tomorrow at 4:00. We got a lot of comments. I'm trying to keep up with everything. Anything else you guys want to add?
I see people want awesome t-shirts from Advisorshares.
Right?
So if you don't know, I'm doing the Alpha Nooner at Advisorshares tomorrow.
Are you?
Noon, if you can't imagine that. So I'm mentioning that not only to give ourselves a plug, but if people want these kind of t-shirts, you got to ask people like Mackenzie and Noah at Advisorshares really nicely, or info@advisorshares.com. And I have to beg for these t-shirts myself.
Well, hey, if you subscribe to our daily newsletter, the Baked In newsletter, log on to thedalesreport.com or leave the link, actually, Mitch, if you can, But if you want to see, and for some of the new viewers on here today, we provide equity research reports for all the companies within the actual industry. We're providing these reports to be very simplified to understand for the everyday retail investor that's benefiting you and not the brokerage banks. We want to basically provide for our community and make sure that you can think and understand research that an analyst is reviewing to give you a better understanding of companies and the overall industry. So in order to get a hat and a t-shirt, log on to thedalesreport.com, have access to those research reports, and get a hat and a t-shirt. All by logging on and subscribing to the Baked In newsletter. As usual, click, or should say smash that like button, leave lots of comments, and we always love hearing your feedback. What a great day. But I think that pretty much wraps up today. Anything else you guys want to provide? If not, we will check back in with you on Wednesday. Nothing?
Just another win we got against Sam. So I'll leave it at that.
Nancy Mace is pro recreational cannabis. Yes, she is. All right, gents, enjoy the rest of your day. See you Wednesday. Hey, everyone. Thanks for watching. And if you want to learn more about the emerging industries that we cover, then leave a comment below and let us know who you want us to interview, the questions you want asked, and the information that you want to learn. We want to hear from you. As usual, click on that bell for all notifications to get the latest information. Share this video with your network, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel because